Welcome, everybody, to the Women's Circle Ask Me Anything. I'm really delighted to talk to you today about a whole bunch of questions people have been asking me in terms of uh, endometriosis and their health, their hormones, and how to optimize life. So, in this, I've got Cindy here is going to fire me some questions, and we're just going to run through and have a really lovely chat about what's on people's minds. So, hi, Cindy, how are you today?
Hey Helen, I'm doing really well. I'm excited to be here for our first Ask Me Anything. So yeah,
Y-
looking forward to sharing some like a nice time with all of our graduates.
Yeah, wonderful, excellent. So, you've got a pile of questions there to ask, and so why don't we start at the beginning and see how see what people want to know.
Perfect. All right. So our first one up for today is, what was the pivotal moment that sparked your transformation from someone struggling with endometriosis to becoming the health engineer?
Oh, that's a really lovely question. Well, I think for me, the whole fact that I was able to move off to transform my health after all my specialists had told me that there was no hope and they would need to operate on me for my endometriosis every year after 5 surgeries. That the whole fact that I was able to change that to be able to improve my health, get off my painkillers, decrease the inflammation, and decrease the pain myself made me realize that there's something special here. And I think that sent me off on the journey of two different parts. Number one, the whole idea that I wanted to help other women because I knew there were a lot of women out there also struggling with the pain and with all the other symptoms that come with endometriosis. And number two, it spurred me to go off and learn and understand the science behind how I'd healed myself. I didn't want this to become a one-off. I wanted to understand how functionally our bodies work and how they heal. And I've really found been blessed with some of the best teachers in the world, and I'm really enjoy sharing my knowledge and really helping people take control of their life and their health.
Oh, amazing. How encouraging and empowering, Helen, that you empowered yourself and you can now empower others to have the same positive outcome in their journey too. So very cool. And then
Thanks.
next one is, looking back at your health journey, what do you know now that you wish you had known when you first started experiencing symptoms of
Oh,
endometriosis?
what a great, yeah, what a great question. I think the first thing that I really didn't know is that I could actually heal. I think there's something really important about knowing that we can take control of our health. I kind of did it blindly, and tried to listen to different people's journeys, but I didn't have a single story understanding that endometriosis was a healable condition. And of course, I had been told the reverse from all my specialists. So I think just knowing that actually it works and it's worthwhile, knowing that that can be a longer process, but it's worthwhile to know that it's actually heading somewhere really positive. And that confidence I now really, encourage everybody to understand that we really can take control of our health. Yeah.
That's very cool. And I think considering that it's Endometriosis Awareness Month, I think to actually have that awareness ourselves and to know there is answers out there and to keep searching until you find a way forward. So our next question was, how did your background in engineering, so we know that Helen has a PhD in engineering, influence your approach to health and wellness? So how did that impact or change how you do your health practice?
Lovely, yeah. How nice. I feel that I provide a unique approach to thinking about health. The whole reason why I was even attracted to engineering to start with was because I really like problem solving. There's always a puzzle upstairs. I'm always finding puzzles to solve everywhere, and I kind of felt that my health was a unique puzzle. And every time I meet somebody, I feel like their own health is their own unique puzzle as well. And so I think rather than coming through maybe more other traditional channels of coming into the health and wellness market, to actually start with a in-depth knowledge of approaching complicated problems and all the pieces of it. enabled me to see health as a whole bunch of factors to put into consideration and be able to see that uniqueness, or what we like to talk as bio-individuality for each person.
Amazing. Yes, and I think it is often that we need someone to come in with a completely different lens to a same problem to just find completely different solutions that work. So that's brilliant.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Helen, what are three foods that have made the biggest positive impact on your health and why?
Yep, no, that's interesting. And who knows whether this is going to end up being a three as recommendations, but what I like to start with people is to find a way to add foods rather than take things out. So and one of the big ones I find for a lot of people is bringing in protein. I think we misunderstand often what protein is and what it does in the body. But it's really not an energy source as much as we can think about it as building blocks of reconstructing everything in our body, and not just muscles, but also bones and tissues and hormones and blood cells. It all needs protein. So I always make like the analogy of thinking about when my husband and I did our house up 2 years ago, and this is post the floods, and we just realised what a leaky house we had. So we got in the builders and we went through a process across 6 months of replacing the roof and every window frame in the whole house. And you wouldn't believe the number of trucks that came in and the number of trucks that left with all the rubble. Um, and really, at the end of 6 months, what we ended up with a slightly nicer looking house, but functionally worked completely differently. And I feel that is the when we think about what's done all those trucks, all the shiny bits that arrived and all the rubble that left, they really were blocks of protein. So if we can bring in protein as building blocks, then we're actually giving the body that, and we can also think about a whole bunch of minerals and nutrients that we get from whole foods, but we start bringing them in, then we're really on the right path to actually creating a healing journey. So that's one side of things. And I think the other things are there are a number of foods which are typically trigger foods for endometriosis. And I think when we think about foods that we might try to avoid, it may be more, for a lot of people, it may be better to think about how to minimize it down or how to make it special treats rather than something that is an everyday or an every meal occurrence. One of them is definitely processed foods. If we can find a way to maybe make some more of our own foods, and I certainly like making my own bars and all sorts of fun recipes. So I feel like I'm still getting treats, but I'm enjoying what I'm eating. So processed foods, or we can even talk about the words ultra processed, and really these ultra processed foods, if you look at the back of the ingredients, you may not even recognize them, and there's certainly nothing that you're going to find in your own cupboards. So that's to me is the idea of an ultra processed food. And then on top of that, we can think about gluten. There's a bunch of issues around gluten as being quite an inflammatory food for a lot of people in a lot of conditions. Some people find that just taking gluten out can make a huge difference to how their gut works, and that gut and lack of inflammation in the gut can really help decrease the endometriosis pain. So gluten is one, and for some people, dairy, and for a lot of people, it's just the quantity of dairy just might be something to look at. So we think about processed foods, gluten, dairy, and of course the sugars as well. This can be actually something inflammatory. They're the ones that I'm more cautious with, but I really want people to be able to feel like they make lifetime choices and creating a new lifestyle rather than go on some diet that feels like they're on a tightrope, because that's not creating long lasting results at all. Yeah.
I agree. I love the minimizing foods and finding things to add, so it doesn't become rules. That we kind of restrict ourselves. But it's actually how do we live fuller lives by minimizing the things that aren't supporting us and finding more foods that do. So that's great,
Yeah.
and love
Yeah.
protein and
Yeah.
energy that we build and yeah, we're not seeing it, but amazing foundation that we. So we've got another one here. Many of us struggle with implementing lasting lifestyle changes. What strategies have you found most effective for creating sustainable health habits?
Yeah, lovely. Well, I think the big one, and I remember, Cindy, this was actually a book you recommended to me a number of years ago, is the book Atomic Habits, and the whole idea that we actually find a way to create small changes that actually make big impacts on us, because it's not big changes over time. It's actually the small changes over time that you find. If you're doing maybe 5, 10 minutes of exercise a day, then across a month, then suddenly you've actually incorporated a whole new part of your world. So I do like the idea of finding ways to think about bringing in things in a way that maybe doesn't take a lot of time, but actually starts creating a new habit. And I remember in that book, Atomic Habits, he had the suggestion of starting to go to the gym, for example. That actually the first few times you went, you only stayed there for a minute, and every time you went to the gym, you actually were there shorter a period than you actually wanted to be there. To actually create a habit of the whole process of going to the gym, and I think about some of the nice lifestyle things that I recommend, which might be around going to bed at a regular time, getting up at a regular time, drinking a good amount of water during the day, ideally before 5 o'clock, um, and that it's that we start with something that we can bring in that's small, and we give ourselves grace that actually we're not going to be perfect about these things, but every day we bring in something that's really positive for us. We're actually doing something special to look after ourselves, and I think that's the nice reward in it all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just the 1% better every day.
Mm, love it.
Uh, and so this one is about hormones. So I think lots of us are have questions around this. So, what are your top recommendations for women experiencing hormone imbalances, especially during the perimenopause and menopause?
Yeah, yeah. No, this is obviously a big question, isn't it? And of course, so many different answers to this. I think one of the big things just to think about if you're struggling with symptoms for perimenopause and menopause is really finding a way to slow yourself down a little bit. Whether that is finding a way that you can go to bed a little earlier, or that you can find a way that you can do some meditation or hypnosis, or something that provides a nice way to really slow down, that can really help. And it may also be that you get yourself a little more organized in terms of foods and nutritions, and know that our hormones are part of our natural things that we have all the time, and that imbalances are typically come from the fact that the body is maybe a little bit more stressed than it is. So just checking in, and then sometimes it is also good to start tracking things a little bit, to just notice, are there times where hormones are feeling like they are taking over, if you like, and what does your nutrition look like? What foods are you finding you're craving? Are there ways that you might bring in some of the things we always talk about in the basics, which is, again, the proteins and the whole foods, and decreasing down the sugars? And do you actually feel a bit better if you support these aspects of it? So as a big general question, I think that's a really nice place to start, is how do you slow down and just realize your body's struggling a little bit with everything that's going on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's that self care and actually taking the time to stop and listen to what
Yeah.
we need, and then making those changes, and then tracking it, like you say, to see what is having a really positive impact on us and our hormones. So the next
Yeah.
question sort of follows on from that a little bit, and so we've got a question saying, how do you approach the complex relationship between stress, sleep, and hormonal health?
Yeah, great. And that's it is really hard, of course, when sleep decreases down, because then it becomes very hard to cope with everything else in the middle, and of course stress going up. And I think again, actually noticing that that is going on is a really helpful side of things, to go, hold on, I am actually getting more stressed. And you might actually be getting more stressed with the same life, right? I.e., things are getting harder to cope with on the same situation, and the same things that didn't seem to be a problem last week, this week seem to be too much. And some of this is actually in that self-care range, the idea of even saying no to things, going, hold on, actually, I actually need a weekend to myself, or I need an early night, or I need, what do I need in order to balance this out? Because life keeps going, and of course, if we end up with stresses getting too much and sleep getting too little, that can manifest itself into us becoming more unwell, or some of our endometriosis symptoms again are really, really starting to let us know that it's all too much. So I think your sleep can be a good barometer of how things are going on for you. And again, those regular sleep times can really, really help. If you're finding you're not going to sleep at night, one of the big things to look at is what time you're getting up. Because if you get up too late, you may end up going to bed too late, or going to sleep too late, which is really a cortisol balancing, and really all about circadian rhythms. So find a nice way to actually realize that maybe you do need a bit of self-care, and maybe you need a bath more than a bar, or whatever it is. But you find nice ways that you really feel like you're connecting with yourself and listening to these messages from your body, because it really always knows what it needs.
Yes, I like it's but like the old plane analogy, like the oxygen mask on ourselves first, and then we are able to keep going and with our lives and being who we want to
Yeah,
be for everybody that as part of our lives.
yeah,
Um,
lovely.
so our next question, Helen, is we've learned about the concept of bioindividuality in our program. Can you share an example of how dramatically different two people's healing protocols might look, even with similar symptoms?
Yeah, well, I think it's for an example, I work with people in their 20s all the way to in their 50s and 60s. And so at different life times, uh, that potentially focused on different things. And and I also find, of course, depending how busy someone is or how active they are, how busy they are with the children, how little sleep they're getting, all of these has a big impact on how much we can actually do, and um, perhaps, for example, how much protein we need, or how much sleep we need, or ways, or how much we actually need to find ways to really calm down our adrenals and reset ourselves during the day. Yeah, and I think it's really what I really like about the whole fact that I work one on one with people, is that we really can get to the importance of what is the most important thing for them. And of course, a lot of people I'm working with, they also come pretty soon out of surgery. And so we're really thinking about, well, how do we just ensure that we get the best results out of surgery in terms of that healing process afterwards? How do we rest? How do we heal? Rather than someone else, we may be more focused on how to increase fitness, for example.
And I think I personally I've experienced that. I think having working with you is each client has a completely different experience, because you meet them where they are at and what the greatest needs and goals are for them. And I think that's what's so wonderful about the program, is that everybody can come in and have a transformative experience, but it will look different, or the pathway is different for everyone, which is very exciting. So in your experience, what's the most underappreciated or overlooked aspect of women's health that deserves more attention?
Yeah, no, lovely. I think that there is so much here, isn't it? I think I hear a lot how people recognize that even a lot of science around health of humans has really been done on males. And the whole idea we're not boys with breasts. We are actually, the way that we work and our hormones and all sorts of things are much are unique and different.